I'm John Batchelor. This is the John Batchelor Show. Liz Peek of the Fiscal Times is here with me as my co-host, as well as Patrick Chovanec of Silvercrest Asset Management. I have arranged a star chamber environment for our next guest. This is Avik Roy, a man who speaks extremely well for himself. He's at the Manhattan Institute. He writes The Apothecary. I recommend it to everyone. It's in today's Forbes. You can go to the page right now and follow along with us, because this requires a lot of detail about the Affordable Care Act, the Obamacare. We have learned that there have been delays or announced by the White House in unusual places like the July 4th holiday and a federal registry and a blog at the Treasury. You have to search for them. Well, there's been another delay, and you have to search for it, but Avik's here to help us. Avik, a very good evening to you. Another delay, this time to do with caps on out-of-pocket insurance costs. You know, you need a scorecard to follow this. Thank you very much. What is a cap on an out-of-pocket insurance? It sounds dangerous. Is it? Good evening, Avik.
Hi, how are you, John? Well, it's the sum total of all the things you pay for on top of your premiums before the insurance kicks in. So things like the deductible and the copay and coinsurance, which is a percentage of the medical expenses that you might incur in a given year. So the total of all those expenditures on top of your premiums is capped by the Affordable Care Act.
Back when Obamacare was being debated, a number of critics said, let's do reform on a piecemeal basis, take it step by step. And the Obama administration said, absolutely not, can't work, because this has to all hold together. Every part supports the other parts. Now we're taking parts bit by bit out of Obamacare. At what point does it not hold together?
Yeah, I would, and that's a great question, because I think there has been this misimpression among a lot of skeptics of the law or critics of the law or people who are suspicious of the law's promises that somehow the law is unraveling. And the law is not unraveling. These are, from a standpoint of the overall architecture of the law, meaningful to the individuals who are affected by them. But relative to the overall architecture of the law, they will not stop the law from being implemented. If anything, it makes the law easier to implement. So to give one example, the fact that the administration is delaying for 1 year some of the income verification elements needed to verify your eligibility for insurance subsidies under Obamacare. They're delaying that for a year, which means that they're basically sending an open invitation for fraudsters to come in and manipulate income data in order to gain eligibility for subsidies. Now, that's not bad if you're a supporter of this law in this sense. If you want as many people to be enrolled in the exchanges as possible and gain subsidies as possible, because you think that will make the law more difficult to repeal in the future, you want to eliminate these controls. You want to delay these regulations, because you want to make it as easy as possible for as many people as possible to sign up for subsidies.
Avik, one of the other delays was the employer mandate, and there's been a lot of talk about whether they might not also delay the individual mandate. What do you think about that?
Well, I think delaying the individual mandate would be an attractive policy, along with delaying a lot of other things in the law, but I wouldn't say that delaying the individual mandate is the most important thing that we would need to do. The most important thing to delay is the subsidies, because once the subsidies start flowing, the subsidies that flow through the insurance exchanges to low-income individuals on the exchanges, that's the part of the law that is the most difficult to unwind. If your goal is to repeal the law, then the thing you should be most concerned is with the subsidies, which is the thing that most of the people who talk about the individual mandate, they're critics of the law in general.
The question of today's delay, or we are learning of the delay today, let's say that this has been in various places for some time now. The explanation I read, and I'm following your Forbes piece, you're quoting Mr. Pear of the Times, I believe, is that the computers did it. They're blaming the robots. The robot systems don't talk to each other fluently at this point. The robot systems that handle drugs, the robot systems that handle procedures in hospitals, and so therefore they have to delay the cap. Does that stand up to you, Avik? Does that sound like a good excuse? Isn't that pretty much like blaming the lamp for having fallen over?
Well, or it's like blaming the car accidents for the traffic lights that don't work, right? If the traffic lights don't work, you're going to have more car accidents. So, I think it's the kind of thing where this is going to be, we're going to see, and we have seen, issues like this crop up all over the law. Anytime you undergo a massive restructuring of 1/6 of the economy, there are going to be a lot of broken eggs, to use, I believe it was Lenin's aphorism. So we're going to see a lot of broken eggs, and I think there's going to be a lot of disruption, and it's going to be interesting to see how it all shakes out.
Who makes money from this delay? Is there someone smiling tonight, Avik?
Yes, the pharmaceutical companies are smiling because or I should say the pharmaceutical companies are frowning. I'm sorry. The insurance companies are happy. The insurance companies are happy because they've already raised their premiums to account for the possibility of out-of-pocket limits, or at least maybe some of them have. But if the out-of-pocket limits are delayed by 1 year, then that's going to mean that they're going to generate more premiums than they will pay out in health expenditures, and they might get some extra cash cushion from that in this year. So they're probably the one group of people who benefit in this particular situation.
Now, the law looked to the states to play ball and to play an essential role, but a lot of those states aren't playing ball, and how serious is that? You've got, I believe, 21 states that have opted out of the Medicaid expansion. You've got 27 states that are saying we're not going to set up, even in conjunction with the federal government, an insurance exchange. We're going to let the federal government deal with that. How serious of an obstacle is that for the proper functioning of Obamacare?
Well, I would put it this way. As the law was designed, states had very little role, actually, in the law's implementation. There were some gestures in the direction of federalism. But in the case of the insurance exchanges are so their design is so prescribed by Washington that states had very little flexibility to design those exchanges or set them up in a way that would be meaningfully different from what the law prescribed. So when it comes to the insurance exchange, states really, I think states the states that didn't implement their own exchanges were wise, for the simple reason that they're increasing the logistical hassle by doing so. In fact, the states that have set up exchanges are facing a lot of problems for just that reason, that it's creating a dual layer of complexity where the state and the state government and the federal government aren't talking to each other. So that's point number one. Point number two, on the Medicaid expansion side, the law as designed didn't give states the choice. Mm-hmm. The law as designed required states to expand Medicaid or lose the entirety of their Medicaid funding. It was the Supreme Court that found that provision of the law to be unconstitutional and gave states the option to opt out of the Medicaid expansion. And I think certainly from the Democratic point of view, a surprising number of states have done so.
We're speaking with Avik Roy of the Manhattan Institute, Patrick Chovanec of the Silvercrest Asset Management, and Liz Peek of Fiscal Times. Liz?
Yes, you talk in your piece about how there is no free lunch, and that the insurance premiums being charged by colleges or charged of colleges now are soaring because young people are having to basically bear the brunt of higher costs for people who are actually ill. I mean, where do we see this going? Are schools just basically going to drop providing insurance coverage for kids enrolled in their schools? And is there, I haven't seen much about this. I'm sort of surprised that it hasn't gotten more publicity.
Well, there's a couple of ways to go. A number of colleges have dropped health coverage for just the reasons you described. A number of colleges have continued coverage, but raised tuition to account, or raised their fees to account for the difference. And of course, since student loans are heavily subsidized by the government, that's another way in which the government, via the taxpayer, insulates college students and their parents from these higher costs.
Avik, this out-of-pocket limitation that has now been delayed for a year, capping it. If I understand this correctly, what we're looking at here is something that was going to protect people with the highest healthcare costs, right? I mean, really a bad situation in the family, correct? Is that all correct? That's what it was meant to protect.
If you're the kind of person who spends an enormous amount of money each year in actual health care, not health insurance, but actual health care, meaning you're going to the hospital, you're going to the doctor, you're consuming very expensive drugs,
right.
Those people will benefit. But that's under 10% of the population, more like probably under 5% of the population that has those kinds of really high health costs.
All right, but I want to apply this to the idea of high deductibles. Isn't what's missing in the Affordable Care Act the ability to issue insurance with a very high deductible? That would be the most attractive to the young people that you want to attract to the pool. And I think that that's what is left out of this discussion about caps. The cap itself defeats the way to entice young people into the system.
Well, you hit on a really important point, John, which is that there really is there has emerged, and it didn't need to be this way, but there has emerged a kind of philosophical or ideological component to the discussion of what health insurance should be. People like Kathleen Sebelius, the Secretary of Health and Human Services, have been outspoken in describing any out-of-pocket cost as a kind of necessary evil. To be avoided as much as possible. We should try to provide care that's free at the point of service in the British lingo. Whereas people who are more market-oriented or free market-oriented in their thinking about health insurance believe that health insurance should be like any other form of insurance, just like car insurance or homeowners insurance, where car insurance protects you if you crash your car is stolen. It doesn't attempt to pay for your wiper fluid or your gasoline. But unfortunately, that's how we think about health insurance, that it should pay for the equivalent of wiper fluid and gasoline, and that's why health insurance is so expensive.
Avik Roy at the Manhattan Institute, writing in Forbes.com. This is the latest delay. And Avik, do we have any reason to believe this will not be the last delay? Do we think there could be a few more out there?
I believe that there are several more out there, and stay tuned for more writing on that front from me.
You're very kind to join us this evening. Avik has had a long day of answering questions about the delay that was implicit but finally is now in the open. This is the third major delay. The delay is on caps of out-of-pocket insurance costs, and as Avik and Patrick discussed earlier, the insurance companies have already raised their rates anticipating this cap. That means they're making money right now. Liz Peek of the Fiscal Times, that's good. We're glad they're making money. Patrick Chovanec of Silvercrest Asset Management, I'm John Batchelor.